So that's one of the things I found lately. I'm gonna get back to Dragon Ball Wild now, though.
Well, we'll be talking about this probably in depth later on when the time has come. But I got my first proper volume of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
You know,
And
I've been watching a little bit of that cartoon show.
yeah.
I hear it was, before it was a cartoon show, an anime, as they call it when it's from Japan. I hear that it started as a really good comic book done by a man who is a goddamn master. Would you say that is an accurate assessment of the origin of JoJo?
Yeah. That is the case. And
that's what I know right now.
He definitely, like, as much as you can tell he grew in the content of the anime, that is still the case with the manga, but so the book I got is particularly the fight with Dio at the very end of Stardust Crusaders. And I would say that is probably the point where JoJo shifts from all right to amazing. Like, that's where I started to feel it when I was watching the anime. And I think that's definitely, like, okay, so I'm not going to consider this a spoiler because everyone knows it. Dio's power is to stop time. I want you to think about this real quick. How do you show someone having the power to stop time using a series of still images?
Now, Kyle asked me this question the other day, and actually, I actually answered him. I thought really hard about it and answered the way that I would do it. But let's focus on how Araki did it.
Yeah. I want to point out that you had answers for it. You've also been doing comics a goddamn time, and I would consider you pretty close to being a master yourself. In a lot of, you have chosen different things to focus on than Araki, obviously, but, like, you know your comics, Chair. You can solve problems like this.
Yeah, I thought I had some pretty good ideas on how I would do it, and but it was really interesting to hear, like, what the old school master did.
Mm-hmm. So he does it a little bit differently every time, and I think that's really good. It keeps it interesting, but there are a few things that sort of unify those incidents. This confrontation is very long. It's like a 350-page fight, and surprisingly very interesting. I could go a whole breakdown on how he made it 350 pages of one fight. So cool. But there's a distinctive pre and post time where they understand what is going on. A big portion of a lot of fights in Part 3 is just figuring out what the enemy's ability is.
Yeah.
So, leading up to them figuring it out, it's a lot of situations where you see a movement happen, but then that movement is reversed. And it's not so much... It's the first hint, because Jifop mentions Dio's a troll about it. It's not so much that he's reversing time, but he is fucking with people before they actually know his ability, before he decides to get serious. And so that has its own visual language, and I don't want to... I want you to experience that, so I'm going to stop there on that particular thing. But
there are some things I know from the Super Best Friends, unfortunately.
Oh, that's fair.
Actually, I have a slight story about a different media. It was a video game the name of the game is eluding me right now, but the character did have time stop powers. It's a video game where it's a stealth game, and you are rewarded for not killing, but you can kill. And you've got like a mission to do, and you go in, you use your magic powers, and you come out. don't remember the name of the game. I'm sorry, but you've got time stop powers, and you've got video game limitations on it, where it's like, okay, I'm hidden here. There's guys here. I got to get over here. I can time stop for this much, right, and etc. And you've got your target. And you get to the assassination thing. It's like you can just time stop and kill them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there gets to be a particular boss that you get to, and you go to time. There are it's like Hitman, where like there's a dozen ways to achieve an objective, but at this particular time, the guy I'm watching had like leveled up his time stop, so he can really time stop this guy. So he can time stop, just go over and kill him, right?
Mm-hmm. It's sounding like Dishonored, by the way.
I think that is exactly what it was. It is Dishonored. That is the one. Thank you.
Cool.
So he stops time and goes to fight the guy, and the guy says, "Oh, really? Well, then let's have a fight that only we can fight." And so it becomes like a time stop versus time stop battle.
It's a Jojo reference.
Because I am led to believe there is a similar moment in that cartoon.
Can't wait till you get there. It's
that notion of, I thought I had you dead to rights, but you've got a thing I didn't know you had, and now it's interesting, and it's too late to turn back. We're in now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was Dishonored.
So one of the main things that I think is really probably the most effective technique is once they know what the ability is, every time it is triggered, all the colors in the panel invert. And that is a good visual cue. No matter what he experiments with, you know the world has been activated when the colors invert. And if I had like any advice for anyone, something like that, like having that uniform language when a thing happens.
Which you can vouch for me on this. Which, like, that's basically what I said when you asked me how I do it.
Yeah,
It's
that
like
was your number. That was your first thing.
I suggested a few things that I might do, but I broke it down to being like, I would have to establish a language for this means it. And one of the things that I suggested was like, I would. I think this of the things that I came up with in the time, this is probably the one I like the most. Is that like you'd have a character who would be time stopped and a character who isn't, and the character who's time stopped, I would put like kind of like lines like glass over them that just kind of like give the frozen feel, but the person that's outside of it is outside of it, and in fact on like layered over those freeze lines, and so like if Hayden here was unfrozen, but everyone else was frozen, I'd put that sort of like glass lines over top of everybody, but not Hayden, and make sure that they go behind him, so he's on top of the lines rather than like captured by them. And that is what I came up with on the spot.
My favorite thing he did, my favorite like full sequence of time stop, was it was in a situation where there's civilians around, people who aren't in the fight, and Dio jumps down, shouts, "The world!" And the black and white invert thing happens that I mentioned. That's like, the big, almost establishing shot of the 2-page scene. And then it cuts to all the characters engaged in the fight with 2 panels each that are identical, except one of them is slightly zoomed out and askew. So it shows this stillness in that repetition of frames.
Got it.
Then in the next page, it shows all these civilians all stuck in motion. Like one's lighting a cigarette, one's like raising a fork full of food to their mouth. It shows a cat jumping up. And from that panel of the cat jumping up, outside of the panels, in the negative space of the bottom half of the page.
That was one of the things I said. That's one of the things I said.
The cat is still jumping up, but Dio is sort of like floating forward past it. And really cool.
I totally called that one.
Yep.
It's like the space, but because when I thought of it, I was thinking of Scott McCloud, and how like the whole point of panel is a sequence of motion. But if you have 3 identical panels, you are showing that nothing is happening. But what if something was behind those panels moving? You
Yeah.
would say that they are outside of the timeline. Fucking smart shit. I love it. Speaking of Iraqi, of course, not myself. Others may say I'm smart, but I will not. It's not my job.
This is stuff I want to break down with you once you have like looked at the comic too.
Yeah.
But his panels, like his actual like usage of paneling, is great. That was actually probably the thing that stood out to me most of the comic as a whole. Like, I thought, like, I've gotten compliments on my paneling for OTL. And a lot of that, like, I think that comes from my experience with manga in general. Manga panels are usually just way more dynamic than Western comic panels.
Yeah.
But Araki's put mine to shame, and I am so excited to learn from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kyle, can I just take a minute to tell you how much I love that sentence? Where you see the thing that's so much better than your thing, and you didn't let yourself take soul damage from it. You let it inspire you to grow.
Yeah.
And boy, is that just what I want everyone to feel. I think it's a level of artistic maturity that each of us reaches at a different speed to be able to, like, beforehand feel outclassed and feel like demotivated by it or demoralized or what have you, versus to be outclassed and be like, I'm going to push in that direction. And it's not even that you need to be Iraqi, but you can go in the direction of Iraqi and grow yourself more in that direction. I fucking love that.
Yeah. And, like, I feel like it's very similar, like, it's a very similar lesson that leads to getting over the whole, oh, this thing's kind of like mine.
Yeah.
That means my idea's ruined. I think that's something that everyone, like, every creative, like, kind of goes with, like, has a problem with originally, but, like...
I'm drawing a high fantasy. Fuck! We're fine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh shit, Kimmy's thing is so much like mine. No, we're going in completely different directions. It's fine.
Yeah. So a lesson that a lot of creators have to do is learn to be like, no, there's going to be ideas similar to yours.
Hey, look,
and
two
that's
cakes.
Actually great. Yeah. In fact, it's the entire thing that allows you to use that marketing trick I talked about, which is this meets this. And that's really, really strong for getting people to look at your thing. They see the association, and that's fine. If anyone ever if any disgruntled commenter ever says, "Oh, this is derivative of such and such," they clearly just don't understand how art works.
Yeah.
Kimmy mentions, God, remember that time I tried to draw flickering lights on a zoomed out city like a dumbass?
I thought it looked great. I don't know.
I mean, it looked great. Like, I definitely... See, you mentioned flickering lights, and I'm like, I don't know how I would solve that problem.
Yeah.
But I bet you, Kimmy, with your experience now, have a billion ways on how you do that problem, solve that problem better.
That's a tricky one, though.
Yeah. Kimmy says, sometimes I feel like those shonen battle protagonists who get knocked back like crazy, but instead of being oof, they just laugh like, you slick motherfucker. You're brilliant, and I'm excited to step up to this challenge. Yeah.
I love it.
I really liked the learning experience of being an artist. It's probably one of my favorite parts of drawing. It will for the rest of my life always be a challenge.
It's like I say on Twitch all the time. It's like art is not one thing you're either good or bad at. It's a toolbox you keep adding tools to.
Yeah. And that's so exciting to me. Like, that's where you get at, like, you can be a master and still have room to grow, and that's cool.